Life has a funny way of changing the rules, doesn't it? For years, you're the parent, the leader, the one in charge. You make the decisions, offer the guidance, and provide the support. Your children look up to you, depend on you, and, hopefully, respect you. But then, almost without you noticing, the power dynamic begins to shift. Those little eyes that once gazed at you with complete admiration might now roll when you offer advice. That eager ear that once soaked up your every word might now tune you out. And sometimes, and this is the hardest part, they might even treat you with disrespect. Maybe they dismiss your opinions, interrupt you constantly, or speak to you in a condescending tone. Perhaps they make you feel like a burden, like you're just in the way. And let's be honest, it stings. It hurts. It can leave you feeling confused, frustrated, and even deeply saddened. If you're experiencing this shift with your own children, you're not alone. Many parents grapple with this as their children grow and establish their independence. The temptation might be to lash out, to remind them of all you've done, to demand the respect you feel you deserve. But trust me, anger rarely solves this problem. In fact, it often makes it worse. So, what's the answer? How do you regain the respect of your children without resorting to arguments, resentment, or power struggles? Today, I'm going to share 6 actionable steps you can take when your children don't respect you. These aren't quick fixes, but rather fundamental shifts in your behavior and perspective that can transform your relationships and help you reclaim your rightful place as a respected and valued figure in their lives. Some of these steps might challenge your assumptions, but I encourage you to stick with me until the end. You might be surprised by how powerfully these simple changes can impact your family dynamic. Let's get started. Action number 1. Stop chasing their approval. This is a big one, and it's often the root of the problem. As parents, especially as we get older, we can fall into the trap of trying too hard to please our children. We want their love, their admiration, their validation, and so we start bending over backward to accommodate them. Think about it. Do you find yourself constantly saying yes when you really want to say no? Do you put their needs and wants ahead of your own, even when it's inconvenient or draining? Do you go out of your way to avoid conflict, even if it means suppressing your own opinions? You might be hoping that by doing enough, they'll finally see how much you care and start treating you with the respect you deserve. But here's the harsh truth. The more you chase their approval, the less they respect you. Respect isn't earned through self-sacrifice. It's earned through self-respect. When you're always giving in, always accommodating, always trying to keep the peace at your own expense, you're sending a message, and that message is, my feelings don't matter as much as yours. Once your children start believing that, it becomes easy for them to take you for granted. They might not even realize they're doing it, but the dynamic has been set. You've unconsciously taught them that your needs are secondary. Let me tell you about someone I knew, Sarah. Sarah was a vibrant, independent woman in her youth, always pursuing her passions and standing up for herself. But as she got older, she became increasingly focused on her children's happiness. She rearranged her schedule around their needs, even when it meant sacrificing her own interests. She kept her opinions to herself to avoid arguments, and she tolerated their occasional condescending remarks. "I just want to keep the family together," she explained to me one day. But the result wasn't harmony. Instead, her children began to devalue her. They saw her as someone who would always adjust, always agree, always stay silent. She thought she was keeping the peace, but she was actually losing her voice and her own sense of self. If you want your children to respect you, the first step isn't to demand it. It's to stop acting like you need it. Start setting boundaries. Say no when you need to. Speak your mind, even if they disagree. Pursue your own interests and hobbies. The moment you start respecting yourself, they'll start seeing you differently. And in time, that respect will be reciprocated. Remember, you deserve your own respect first. Action number 2. Don't argue. Lead by example. When your children dismiss your opinions, talk over you, or treat you with disrespect, your first instinct might be to argue. You might want to remind them of everything you've done for them, to demand that they listen, to prove that you're still knowledgeable and worthy of respect. But let me tell you something that will save you years of frustration. Arguing almost never works. Think about it. When was the last time you convinced someone to respect you by fighting for it? Respect isn't won through words, it's earned through presence, through the way you carry yourself, through the way you respond to challenging situations. If you meet disrespect with anger, defensiveness, or nagging, all you're doing is confirming their negative perception of you. You're reinforcing the idea that they have power over you, that they can provoke you and get a rise out of you. And that only diminishes their respect further. I remember a gentleman named George, a retired engineer. He was a respected figure in his profession, known for his sharp intellect and calm demeanour. But at home, his grown children had started treating him like an afterthought. They ignored his advice, dismissed his concerns, and sometimes even rolled their eyes when he tried to offer assistance. At first, he argued back, trying to prove that he still deserved their respect. He'd lecture them, criticize their choices, and try to force them to see things his way. But the more he fought, the worse things got. They became even more dismissive and resistant. Then one day, George made a conscious decision to change his approach. Instead of arguing, he started listening, really listening. He stopped chasing respect with words and instead carried himself like a man who already possessed it. He spoke calmly, with wisdom, without the need to win or dominate the conversation. Slowly but surely, his children started to notice. They saw a man who wasn't desperate for their approval, who didn't need to prove his worth, who simply was a figure of strength and quiet confidence. They started to value his opinions, not because he demanded it, but because he demonstrated wisdom and composure. If you want your children to respect you, don't fight them for it. Show them what respect looks like through your own actions and demeanour. Maintain your dignity, speak with confidence and clarity, and most importantly, never lower yourself to their level. When you hold your ground with grace and poise, they will feel it, and in time, they'll follow your lead. It's about showing, not telling. Action number 3. Withdraw your emotional dependence. This can be a tough one, especially after years of being the primary caregiver. One of the hardest lessons to learn as we grow older is that we can't depend on our children for emotional fulfillment. We may love them deeply, and we may want them to love and respect us in return. But the moment they sense that we need them to feel valued or happy, the power dynamic in the relationship shifts, and not in a good way. Here's the reality. People, even your own children, respect those who are emotionally independent. When you rely on them for validation, affection, or constant attention, it puts undue pressure on them. Instead of feeling grateful or loving, they may start feeling burdened, suffocated, or even resentful. They might start pulling away, becoming less communicative, or treating you with impatience or irritation. And the more you chase their love and attention, the less freely they give it. It's a vicious cycle. I once knew a woman named Eleanor. She was a kind-hearted mother who had given everything to her children. As they grew older and got busy with their own lives, she found herself constantly waiting by the phone, hoping they'd call. When they didn't, she'd call them, often too frequently, reminding them how much she missed them and how she wished they would visit more. But instead of bringing them closer, it pushed them away. They started seeing her calls as an obligation, not as something they looked forward to. They felt guilty and burdened by her neediness. Then, one day, Eleanor had an epiphany. She realized that she was placing an unfair burden on her children. So, she decided to make a change. She stopped waiting by the phone. She stopped calling them first. Instead, she started focusing on herself. She picked up new hobbies, joined a book club, volunteered at a local charity, and started spending more time with her friends. And something surprising happened. Her children started calling more. They were curious about what she was doing, impressed by her independence, and relieved that she wasn't relying on them for her happiness. They began to respect her, not out of obligation, but because they genuinely admired the full and meaningful life she was building for herself. The lesson is simple. The less you depend on your children to make you feel needed or valuable, the more they will start valuing your presence in their lives. When you show them that you can stand strong on your own 2 feet, they will respect you, not out of guilt or obligation, but because they genuinely admire the strength and resilience you embody. Action number 4, set boundaries and enforce them. This is absolutely crucial, and it's often where parents fall short. One of the biggest reasons children lose respect for their parents is because the parents let them. If you allow your children to talk to you disrespectfully, dismiss your opinions, interrupt you constantly, or treat you as if your time and feelings don't matter, they will keep doing it. It's not necessarily because they're bad people or deliberately trying to hurt you. It's simply because people, especially family members, will always treat you the way you allow them to. We teach people how to treat us. Setting boundaries doesn't mean cutting off your children or creating unnecessary conflict. It means calmly and firmly deciding what kind of behavior you will and will not accept. And more importantly, it means consistently enforcing those boundaries when they're crossed. Let's consider Michael. Michael was a retired teacher. He had spent his professional life in a classroom, managing and guiding children. But as a father, he struggled to set boundaries with his adult children. They would interrupt him when he spoke, roll their eyes at his opinions, and even criticize the way he lived his life. At first, he tolerated it. He told himself it wasn't worth the fight. He didn't want to cause any drama, but over time, he realized that every time he stayed silent, every time he let their disrespectful behavior slide, he was inadvertently teaching them that their actions were acceptable. He was giving them permission to continue treating him that way. So, one day, Michael decided to change his approach. The next time his son interrupted him, he calmly said, "I'll continue speaking when you're ready to listen." When his daughter dismissed his opinion, he simply replied, "You don't have to agree with me, but I expect you to respect my point of view." And when they continued to push his limits, he made it clear that if they couldn't treat him with basic respect, he wouldn't be spending time with them. And you know what happened? They started listening. At first, they resisted. They tried to push back, to test his resolve. But over time, they realized that Michael wasn't backing down. They saw that he valued himself enough to demand respect. And because of that, they started giving it to him. They learned that their behavior had consequences. If your children don't respect you, it's time to ask yourself, are you allowing it? Are you tolerating behaviors that you shouldn't? Because if you don't set boundaries, they won't set them for you. And if you don't stand up for yourself, no one else will. Action number 5. Stop giving without appreciation. This is another crucial element in reclaiming respect. One of the quickest ways to lose respect is to keep giving to people who don't appreciate it. As parents, we often do this more often than we realize. We give our time, our energy, our support, our money, even when it's not acknowledged, even when it's taken for granted, even when we're met with nothing but entitlement. We do it because we love our children and want to help them, but sometimes our generosity can backfire. Here's the truth. When you give to someone who doesn't appreciate it, you don't build love. You don't build respect. You build expectation. They stop seeing your kindness as something valuable and start seeing it as something they are entitled to. And the moment you stop giving, they don't feel grateful. They feel inconvenienced or even angry. They've come to expect your generosity, and when it's no longer forthcoming, they feel like you're depriving them of something that's rightfully theirs. Let's talk about Emily. Emily was a mother who had always been incredibly generous with her adult children. She helped them financially whenever they needed it, babysat their kids at a moment's notice, and dropped everything to assist them with household projects. She went above and beyond to support them. But instead of gratitude, she was often met with complaints and demands. They rarely said thank you. They expected her to always be available and they often criticized her efforts. And the worst part was, when she finally needed their help, they were always too busy. One day, Emily realized that she was enabling their entitlement. She was training them to take her for granted, so she decided to make a change. She stopped overextending herself. She stopped offering help before it was even asked. And, most importantly, she started saying no when she needed to prioritize her own needs. At first, her children were frustrated. They didn't understand why she wasn't bending over backward for them anymore. They accused her of being selfish and uncaring. But over time, something shifted. They started valuing her time and her efforts. They started appreciating her generosity because suddenly they realized that it wasn't unlimited. It was a gift, not a guarantee. They began to show more gratitude and offer their help in return. If you feel like your children don't respect your time, your effort, or your kindness, take a step back and ask yourself, are you giving more than you should? Are you enabling their entitlement? And if so, what would happen if you stopped? Because when you teach people that your generosity is conditional on respect and appreciation, they will start treating it that way. Action number 6. Build a life outside of them. This is perhaps the most empowering and transformative step you can take. One of the most powerful ways to regain your children's respect is to show them that your happiness, your purpose, and your fulfillment don't revolve solely around them. As parents, it's natural to devote ourselves to our children, to make them the center of our lives, especially when they are young. But as they grow older and become more independent, that dynamic needs to shift. If you've spent your entire life prioritizing your children, they may start seeing you as someone who has nothing else going on, someone who is solely defined by their role as a parent. People respect those who have their own passions, their own interests, their own sense of fulfillment, regardless of their age. If your children see that you rely on them for entertainment, validation, or a sense of meaning, they might start feeling suffocated. Or worse, they might start seeing you as someone who has no life of their own, someone who is dependent on them for happiness. Consider David. David was a widower in his late 70s. After his wife passed away, he poured all of his energy into his children's lives. He called them constantly, offering unsolicited advice, expecting them to fill the emotional void that his wife had left behind. He became overly involved in their affairs. But instead of drawing them closer, it pushed them away. They visited less frequently, their phone calls became shorter, and David felt more alone than ever. He had inadvertently made himself a burden in their lives. Then, he made a conscious choice to change his approach. He joined a local hiking club, started taking painting classes, and volunteered at a community garden. He stopped making his children the center of his world. And something incredible happened. His children started reaching out more. They were curious about what he was doing. They admired his independence and his adventurous spirit. They respected him not just as their father, but as a vibrant and engaged individual. If your children don't respect you, ask yourself, do they see you as someone with a full and meaningful life outside of your role as a parent? Or do they see you as someone waiting around for their attention and approval? Because when you show them that you are living, not just existing, they will start seeing you in a completely different light. They will respect you not just for what you've done for them, but for who you are as an individual. They will admire your strength, your resilience, and your passion for life. Remember, a life well lived is the best example you can set. So, those are the 6 actions you can take when your children don't respect you. Remember, respect isn't something you can demand. It's something you inspire through your actions, your boundaries, and the way you live your life. It's about showing, not telling. If your children have started treating you with less care, less consideration, or less respect, don't waste your energy getting angry or resentful. Instead, shift your approach. Stop chasing their approval, lead by example, withdraw your emotional dependence, set boundaries, and enforce them. Stop giving without appreciation and build a life outside of them. If you do these things consistently, something incredible will happen. Your children will start seeing you in a new light, not as someone waiting for their attention and validation, but as someone who commands respect simply by being who they are. And in time, that respect will be reciprocated, not because you demanded it, but because you earned it. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you found these insights helpful. If you did, please leave a comment below and share one thing you learned and how you plan to use it in your own life. I always love reading your thoughts and experiences. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel for more content on building stronger relationships and living a more fulfilling life. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.